Hello and welcome to The Mindful Life with Waylon Lewis, yours truly, of Elephant Journal. And this is a podcast and a video series. It's been going on for many years. Podcast actually is new. So anytime you review, share it, put it up on your Instagram stories, send us a question to @WalkTheTalkShow on Instagram or talkshow at elephantjournal.com. Super helpful. Today will be all about one of you listener reader questions. So anytime we get a question, if it's halfway interesting, and they all have been, we will do a whole episode right on it. All right, let's begin as we always do with good posture. Best posture of the day, really great posture, like your Wonder Woman. Speaking of, the police are rescuing to save someone, hopefully. Like your Superman, like your Batman, whatever, great posture. Then relax that heroic posture and breathe. And with respect and friendliness, let's bow to everyone everywhere. So today the reader question, the listener question is, hi Waylon and Redford, my dog, and the Elephant Journal team. I'm wondering what the Buddha would say about when to fight. So first, and this will just be very short caveat, no one knows what the Buddha would say. No one knows what any wise person would say, particularly, and who am I to say anything? Well, I'm nobody, you're nobody, none of us are anybody. We're all just random amalgamations of life, which is this beautiful kind of coincidence of countless factors. And it all fall apart when we die, and it's all falling apart every day. When we eat, when we poop, we're just changing all the time. So I'm nobody, but you're not nobody in a negative sense, like you're nobody. You're fundamentally decent and good, and that is all that the Buddha was. The Buddha means awakened one. So even though we don't know what the historical Buddha might say, and I want to be clear that I can't speak to that, it's like speaking on behalf of Jesus or the Buddha, I think, is the fastest route to hell. At the same time, there is a fundamental human wisdom, a basic human wisdom that is available to all of us all the time when we just get our selfish worry and narcissism out of the way. And how do you do that? Well, you do it again and again and again and again through the practice, the training, the craft of meditation. And the craft is simply being aware of those thoughts without judgment, and then returning to your breath. And what happens is you start training your mind to wake up. I don't know if all of you meditate or some of you do, but if you've ever meditated, you'll notice that you'll be sitting there thinking about some girl or guy or woman or whoever, or work problem or something happy, a song is going blasting through your head. And after 20 seconds, you'll suddenly realize you've been thinking about it. You haven't been present at all. And you're like, oh, wow. I didn't even notice. I was in California mentally. And I'm in Colorado in reality. So you notice that. You label it thinking. I'm just thinking. And you return your attention to the breath. And that is how we get out of our own way and begin to live a life that is available to all the goodness in the world and the universe. So with that caveat, what would the Buddha say about when to fight? Great question. I am concerned about being a pushover, but I don't really want to spend a second of my life fighting. I wonder if at times I have a responsibility to fight to ensure other people aren't mistreated. So I don't want to fight for myself, but should I fight for others and be kind of a protector or a hero in that way, or a heroine? When should I go to battle? When should I let it go? I'm not going to call out who asked that in case it's at all private. So let's talk about fighting. So the notion of fighting, I think, is mistaken. In the Buddhist path, we say, by this merit may all attain kind of peace or harmony. May it defeat the enemy wrongdoing, which could also be translated as wrong thinking. It's a mistaken thought to think that solving anything is affected through aggression. So when we're stressed out, when we're claustrophobic, when we're having a hard day, Vanessa, the Ella producer here, and I were just at a cafe, and we couldn't, for like 15 minutes, get the goddamn videos that were on my phone to show up and upload to IGTV, even though we tried 18 different ways. And viscerally, I wanted to throw my phone and break it. So we were making jokes about that. And I saw Vanessa, thankfully, get frustrated too and want to, I think, throw a phone or something. So that's just how we get. We get small-minded. We start off the day like, oh, look at the beautiful clouds. Ah, the birds. Ah, my coffee. And then, we're speedy and we're throwing our to-go coffee cup in the landfill and everything's crazy and we're busy and people aren't appreciating us. And by the end of, the worst moment of our day, our mind and our heart have become this small. And our reaction is to be like, get away, I need space. Which is actually a beautiful reaction if you look at it. The instinct is you want space. So I used to do this with my dog all the time. My dog would be Redford, who was asked this question, to be fair, would be doing something super stupid, like trying to run across the street, or not coming when I called him because he wanted to go play with a cat, but it was a one-way desire. The cat had no desire to play with him. I'd be like, Redford, I can't. And you can just see the second you become angry at a dog, the dog, number one, doesn't get what you're angry about. He doesn't have the whole story because you haven't really explained it to him, and he doesn't speak English and you don't speak dog. And number two, the only thing he does get is maybe a little fear. And when you see that you are causing fear in the eyes of a dog or your child or anyone you love or respect, even caught up in the aggression of the moment, you realize that I'm the problem here. That this is not an effective way to transmit information and fix a problem running across the street. So Redford was a more powerful teacher than almost anybody except for the Buddha or Trungpa Rinpoche or my mom or various girlfriends in my life in teaching me that aggression was totally pointless. It wasn't even that aggression was bad, although it's a little bit bad. The fear-causing stuff is kind of bad and sad. But it's just also just dumb. It's ineffective. So, there could be an argument for aggression if it worked. But it really doesn't. And you see that out on a national level. We hate Saddam Hussein. Let's go in and bomb. Yay, we're so proud. Aggression felt so good. And then before you know it, we're embroiled in 25 years of war and terrorism. And so in Buddhism, they say, and that's not some weird political liberal thing. I mean, it's literally what has happened. The military would say this. The Pentagon would say, wow, we poked a hornet's nest and now we have to be ready for something to come back. So in Buddhism, we say aggression creates further aggression. So that may sound like some nice Buddhist saying, let's make a t-shirt and light some incense. But this is really a powerful notion that has changed my whole life from a young age. Aggression creates aggression. So think about that as it's like if you're starving, you're hungry. Is this making sense or are you just nodding because I'm awkwardly looking at you? So if you're really hungry and you say, I want to manifest a magical burger, and maybe it's a vegan burger if you're vegan. I want a magical burger. And the only way to get it is through aggression. But every time you're aggressive, all you get is a big pile of poop, right? That's what aggression does. You want a good outcome, you want to create a good thing, but you get the opposite. So aggression makes bigger what you hate. So by hating George W. Bush back in the day, by hating Barack Obama back in the day, by hating Donald J. Trump back in the day, you create equal hate, if not more, in the fans in the defense of Barack Obama or Bush or Trump. So you just create division, when really what you want at the end of the day is to be able to have this big kumbaya thing where nobody is blatantly racist because they've learned that racism, I'm getting off the topic, but you ultimately don't want to destroy half of your own country. Sure, there's racists, there's people who are over the line, but even those people, and I've blogged about Daryl Davis, and we'll link that in this. He's an African American who has befriended and converted hundreds of Ku Klux Klan members. So he has this collection of their robes and hats and stuff that they've given to him because they're like, oh my God, I grew up in this hate. And this African-American man broke through somehow and talked with me. He didn't hate back at me. It's the most obvious thing to do, is to hate a hateful person or to hate a hater. But what do you think a hater surrounded by hate is going to do with their life? They're going to hate louder. So, this is what we do with the prison system, right? We put a bunch of people who we've rejected for good or bad reasons, usually for kind of ridiculous reasons in a lot of cases, and we put them around a bunch of other people who've been rejected for good or bad reasons, often bad reasons, and we deprive them of a lot of what they need to actually, a healthy education, a healthy way of life, so that they can actually rehabilitate, right? Ultimately, prisons, selfishly, from the citizen's point of view, should be about rehabilitation, because you want to reintroduce these people into society in a way that is safe for them and safe for us. So I'm all over the place, but that's what makes a engaging podcast, I'm told. Lots of segues that all tie up into a neat bow at the end. So I'm concerned about being a pushover. This is powerful. So Vanessa and I and Kelsey, another editor at Elephant, and someday we'll listen to this recording and be like, remember when Kelsey worked at Elephant? God, what happened to her? Why did she quit? She was so angry at Vanessa. Something awful Vanessa did. So we were biking to go work. We were going for a little bike ride to work at a cafe on our laptops. And we passed all these high school kids. And one of the high school kids was literally pushing this littler kid from behind. And I saw the littler kid. He didn't look like he was enjoying it. He didn't look like he was hating it, but he definitely looked surprised and not pleasantly. And then I didn't see the rest of it, but I think he got pushed onto a car or something. And the older kid, who was much bigger, or the bigger kid, also yelled a homophobic slur at him that rhymes with rag. And it wasn't cool. And Vanessa actually said something. And I think just by our presence there, hopefully chilled it out 5%. But that's what happens with bullying, right? I was bullied. I was super small because I'd skipped a grade in junior high. So skipping a grade in junior high is like the fastest route to not being cool. You're super nerdy. You're obsessed with A's. You're short because you're younger. You can't play any of the sports you love because you're younger. And I was so clueless. I think I had like the nerdiest non-haircut in the world. I wore a Sherlock Holmes sweatshirt one day that my uncle had given me that I really liked because I was reading Sherlock Holmes, this big, literally this thick. And it had a picture of Sherlock Holmes with the pipe, the iconic pipe and the cool hat with the two bills. And the sweatshirt had the iconic Sherlock Holmes with the big nose and the pipe and the two bills. And I'm in the library reading this book this thick, wearing the sweatshirt with the book, with the image, and going to KC Junior High, as it was called at the time, which was like kind of vicious school. And I had skipped a grade, so I was alone from all my friends. Like I had no one there to support me. And this tall, beautiful, cool girl named Casey, remember I'm going to KC Junior High, so her name's Casey, like stands up, points at me in the middle of the entire library and says, ha ha ha, ha, look at Waylon reading Sherlock Holmes while wearing the Sherlock Holmes sweatshirt. I mean, I was just such a clueless target. And, I was shoved into lockers by these two girls. I was mostly bullied by girls, by the way, which is very interesting. And, I was tripped and shoved down on the soccer field by another girl. There was this like gang of girls who decided like picking on this boy. Probably they were just sick of being oppressed by the patriarchy, and their way to take out their anger was on like a weak failure of the patriarchy. Like I wasn't tough in any way. So anyway, I got bullied the whole year, and I would go home crying every single day. And I had some friends, but one dear friend who I would bike with to and from school, I'd be crying all the time. And, for a 12, 13, 14-year-old boy to be crying every day, that's pretty vulnerable. And, I got stabbed by an ice pick in the baseball locker room. Everyone did. And by this, like, kind of troubled kid. And all the kids were, like, pulled against their will. And their clothes ripped off and shoved into the showers. It was junior high. It was rough. So, that really affected me for years. There's a level of, you could call it trauma, there's a level of trauma from bullying. So I did what anyone in that situation would do. I tried to learn like an animal. I looked to all the other animals who were surviving. It was like Darwin time. So the next year I came back. Luckily I was growing because I had skipped a grade and I was growing. And I had a gold chain and I had a OP, Ocean Pacific. Does anyone remember that? The surfing t-shirts, they were super cool at the time. And I had I had a haircut. I didn't even really I had probably had mom's bowl cut from like the Beatle haircut like my whole life. So I had a real haircut, whatever that was, spiky or something. And I said the F word a lot, which I didn't even know how to swear when I started junior high. I never swore. And those like four things, suddenly I wasn't cool, but nobody messed with me. No one paid attention to me. I wasn't sticking out. The worst thing you can do when you're around cowards, which is a translation for bully, is stick out. If there's anything weird about you, they will pick on it. So there was nothing weird about me. And I was also probably half a foot bigger, which was an advantage I had belatedly. So all of that is a big prelude to say, being a pushover is very personal to me, thinking about that. In the Japanese samurai tradition, they say, the bravest warrior is he or she who doesn't just decline, refuses to take their sword out of the scabbard. Their sword never comes out of the scabbard. So they refuse to fight. That is the greatest warrior. Sun Tzu says a similar thing from a strategic point of view. Sun Tzu, the famous Chinese general who wrote The Art of War, which is brilliant and beautiful, and you should read it. Even if you read a couple of the pages, it'll change your whole life, particularly if you're in business or dealing with children or any kind of obstacles. It's not that you're in war with the children, but it's about actually avoiding war, was my point. So never engage in a war unless you know you can win cleanly and easily, is one of the basic principles. And you can almost never win cleanly and easily. So from a Buddhist point of view, they would say, a lot of this is around idiot compassion. If you allow yourself to be treated like a doormat, you will be. So, two things. Number one, I call it like the Russian retreat. When Napoleon attacked Russia, they just retreated. They burned the farms, they killed all the livestock, and they retreated into the winter. And then Napoleon froze. They did the same thing to Hitler, and Hitler froze. So these in completely dominant, world-famous, all-powerful armies died in the face of no food, their supply chains were stretched, and the Russian winter. I do the same thing when I'm around aggression in my life. So generally with aggression, I just kind of retreat. I just kind of go, kind of like, what is that like? Like if you spill mercury all over and it just gathers into itself and then it finds a crack and it just goes, bloop. It's like water. You just kind of avoid everything. So, if someone's a jerk, they're probably not going to be in my life. So when you can, just retreat. Just rush and winter away from aggressive people. That does work for work. That does work for school. That does work for a lot of contexts where you think, well, I'm always going to see this person. But, I had a sort of crazy, malevolent person in my life once, and I just basically averted my eyes and kept my head down and just tried to avoid them and not confront, because any kind of confrontation, whether it was positive or negative, created drama. So basically avoid Russian winter away from them. That said, some of us are in situations where you can't avoid the person, right? Small staff or a small community or a small co-housing, or you're in a family with a drunk uncle or, school with some bully. How do you confront that? That's super tough. We have tons of articles on bullying on Elephant by parents and experts and children, all three really, who have gone through this and who are smarter than me about that. I got bullied hard, so I don't totally know how to avoid it when you can't avoid it. And I would say that being willing to not accept being mistreated can be important, but you can't do it in some sort of aggressive way because you'll just get smushed. Bullies love resistance. and they will punch you all the harder, whether it's psychically or emotionally or physically. So you have to just be willing to say, I'm a decent human being, I don't deserve this, and I'm peacing out, So how do you peace out if you can't peace out? I think really so I had this moment with the bully girls, Angie and Heather, at the end of my year. That was like straight out of Dead Poets Society, where I stood up for myself. It was the first time I ever did it. And so I think this is sort of an example of how you can stand up for yourself without aggression. So I was getting picked on by Heather Groninger. Sorry, nasty, nasty human being. I'm sure she's wonderful now. I think we're actually Facebook friends. But she was starting to pick it on me, just in the way that my father, you would see these signs of abuse coming toward my mom. You would see her starting to warm up and start to pick on me in the beginning of a class. The teacher wasn't in there. And the most popular, cool kid who didn't care about being cool, that's how cool he was. He was like just a nice guy. Everyone liked him. Jonathan Altman lived in the Mork and Mindy house. He just got irritated. It happened all year, And he just said, kind of quietly, because this is the least cool thing to ever say in junior high, he said, Heather, do you have to pick on Waylon all the time? And Heather loudly and arrogantly said, oh, he enjoys it, don't you, Waylon? Oh, we're just having fun. Right, Waylon? Something like that. And I remember I actually really wasn't standing up for myself. I remember I was honest. I didn't know how to swear. I was honest. I was nice. All the things you don't want to be in junior high. And I just said, no, I hate it. And literally the whole class freaked out. Like, everyone was so surprised that I had said that. And I wasn't actually trying to stand up for myself now that I remembered. I was just answering the question. I hated it. And everyone clapped and booed Heather, and she just shrunk out of The Wizard of Oz, with the witch. She just went, what did she say in that movie? Anyway, water's poured on her. She's like, I'm melting. She just disappeared. Her bullying disappeared. And then, I think we went on to have a more peaceful relationship the next year. So I think you just have to be willing, even if you're outgunned, outmatched, just, report them. But often that'll lead to more bullying and more punishment. It's tough. And if you're in prison, you're getting bullied, and you report someone, that could be the end. So, we've done other podcasts and videos on always trust the principal one. Every situation will be different, so always trust the principal one. The principal one is you, right where your heart is. So you have to say, what can I do here to get away from this bullying, or to stand up to it without incurring further punishment? There's no virtue in being a pushover. That said, the corollary and the final point I want to make is the meek shall inherit the earth. That's what the Bible said. We've seen very little evidence of that in reality, but the meek shall enjoy the earth. Meek people who are kind love each other, have loving families, create peace, do all the things that all the aggressive people who want to be rich and destroy the whole planet wish they had, which is happiness. The meek people are actually happy. So if you want to be happy, be decent. Let's forget about the word meek. Just be decent. If you want to be unhappy, you can spend your whole life living out your trauma, trying to make money or crush the enemy or do whatever, and be a bully in relationships, but you won't ever be happy. You'll taste happiness, but it'll go away. And your happiness will be laced with the disgusting taste of attachment to that happiness and fear of losing that happiness and too much arrogant pride in your happiness, So you can drive a neon green Lamborghini and be less happy than riding a bike, right? So that notion of not taking your sword out of the scabbard, of being willing to be meek. In the Shambhala Buddhist tradition, they talk about the tiger. The tiger is so powerful. He or she is the king or queen of the jungle. I know the lion also is, but the tiger is just so powerful and dominant that it can walk slowly. It rolls. It's sort of gentle and quiet, and it can lay around and chew on some grass while it's watching the prey, and it's just so relaxed. So it's not exactly meek, but it has no need to display its strength. out of arrogance because its strength is so obvious. So, you'll see with bullies, they have to peacock around. They have to display their aggression and their power all the time. And true power is just so confident and relaxed in that confidence. True power, like a good parent, can actually be vulnerable and open and be willing to say with the child, talk about difficult situations and explain the thinking and the why and the wherefore, so that the child isn't just yelled at for doing the wrong thing, but is talked to as if they are intelligent, which they are, and they will become more intelligent if they're treated that way. So they're treated as if they're basically intelligent and decent, and you'll explain things to the child instead of just yelling at them. Similar, again, to the Redford dog analogy. So I think that's plenty of talking around this, but it's a beautiful question. I think the final point was, is it okay to fight when you're trying to ensure other people aren't mistreated? When should I go to battle? When should I let it go? So there's a big misconception in social activism, and I'll end with this, which is that if you're not angry, you're not paying attention. I agree with that. I think it's totally okay to feel angry and be angry. And, when you see the Amazon forest getting raked over, you should feel heartbroken and angry. But it needs to be a heartbroken anger, not an angry anger. Because if it's an angry anger, you're just, again, going to create more hate. And if it's a heartbroken anger, heartbreak is open. As Leonard Cohen said, it's through the cracks that the light gets in. So if it's heartbroken, it'll be inquisitive. And if you want to fix the Amazon, you're not going to do it through aggression. You're going to do it through being inquisitive. And if you're inquisitive, you'll say, why is the Amazon getting mowed down? Well, it's because farmers generally, is partially because of Bolsonaro, fake news, electing a dictator who said he would destroy the Amazon. So what can you do around that political process, around WhatsApp, around social media versus journalism, fake news versus democracy? That's important. Then you could also say, how can I affect the Amazon? Well, most of it's getting cut down for livestock, feed and farms, so, and livestock themselves. So obviously eating less meat is a powerful way to do that. Not engaging the Chinese in tariffs, as Beto O'Rourke talked about last night. Right now, China's moving almost all of its markets from the US to Brazil because of Trump's tariff war. Beto is the only one to connect those dots. So you have to look at, okay, what can I do? Well, not eating a burger would be a great place to start, but there's a lot more. So that inquisitiveness will heal the whole world. And ultimately, that's what you want. Let's take a good posture and with respect and friendliness, give it away. Every time you review, you comment, send in a question, share it with someone, you keep us going. Thank you so much.